Good evening, and welcome to this, the first edition in the new series of the show, Up Late with Sehon Marshall. I am your host, Sehon Marshall. Thank you so much for joining us. This evening's show marks a brand new beginning of a project that we started a few years ago. Many of you would remember the project from years ago, back in 2018. And so, as I start this new project, let me thank all of those individuals who made the first airing of this program a successful one. Let me thank Mark Richardson of Platinum Sounds for providing the stage and the lighting for the program. Let me thank Steve Wallace and Splectron, who provided video services and streaming services for the program. Let me thank members of my team that worked with me free of cost. Vincent Reed, Samisha Korea, Joseph Bling Ballantyne, my nephew Aunt Ma, Truth Young, Damon McTeer did some voicing for the program. My daughter Sarah did some photography. Many individuals came together to make the first set of programs of Up Late with Sehon Marshall a success. And of course, you can't forget the fantastic guests that we had, both those who were just interviewed and those who performed and gave some color to the program. Well, this time around, unfortunately, we're not going to be having the fantastic studio that we had back then. Instead, we are doing it virtually. But you can rest assured that the same quality of the programming that you got last time, you'll be getting again this time. Trust me, you can hold me to that. And of course, feel free to reach out to us. Feel free to reach out to me, comment on the various platforms that you're looking at. And believe you me, I would take the time to read your comments. Remember, we can be found on Facebook, on YouTube, and also on Instagram. You can just simply type in the name Up Late with Sehon Marshall, or in the case of Instagram, Up Late WSM. Like, follow, subscribe, so that you can be a part of this of this very fantastic program. It's not really interactive, where you can get the notifications and so forth when the program is aired. Remember, it's every Thursday night, 9 o'clock Caribbean time, 9 o'clock SVG time. And for this particular time, currently, it will be 8 p.m. New York time or East Coast time in North America. All right? Okay, so as I said, this program is a new first in a new series of programs that will be coming every Thursday night, bringing you exciting guests, looking as usual as we did last time at ordinary Vincentians who do extraordinary things. As I start this week, I will reflect on what was just completed over the last week in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and that is the hosting of the CELAC Summit, the 8th edition of the CELAC Summit. St. Vincent and the Grenadines, that had been pro tempore president over the last year, hosted the summit. And from all indications, it was a massive success. I wasn't there on the ground to be a part of it, and believe you me, I was so jealous and disappointed. However, I beamed with pride as my country was on full display. Kudos to all of you who played your part and played your role in ensuring that that summit was a resounding success. Congratulations. Tonight, for our first program, we are going to look at a bit of what happened over the few days with the CELAC Summit within the context of intergovernmental organizations and what really are the roles that these organizations play in today's world. Are they relevant? With me tonight, staying up late, is the individual who was my very first guest on the very first issue of Up Late with Sehon Marshall. I am talking of none other than my brother, my friend. I'd call him Rich, but he's also known as Professor Richard Byron-Cx. Let me welcome Professor Byron-Cx to the Up Late program. Richard, good evening, and thank you for staying up late.
Good evening, Sehon Marshall, Mr. Marshall, the Marshall himself, as always. Good evening. I would always stay up late for you. You don't have to thank me. It's a pleasure. It's an honor that you would ask me to be here and that I would be your first guest in this our second series. I say our because it's up late with Sehon Marshall, but it's about St. Vincent and the Grenadines. It's about the people that you love and you serve and the people who follow you and the people who've always been interested in what you have to offer. So I'm sorry, but I have to say our program. Not meaning not me and you, but you and the people of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and even people who are not Vincentians but who follow you over the years. So I'm really, really happy to be here. It's a wonderful opportunity, and I want to congratulate you for bringing back this program. I know over the years, whether it was Morning Scoop, it was Street Beat, it was Up Late with Sehon Marshall, your commentary on VFM, you always bring the issues and you always bring a new light, a new perspective, and you tell people that we need to see it not just through one prism, but many prisms for us to understand what is really happening. So I'm really, really happy that you have invited me back. And I hope that we can really give a good account of ourselves in this show, this first show, because from here on in, we want the people to follow this and to be part and parcel of what you have to offer. So I'm truly, truly honored that you've asked me to join you on this first program.
Well, thank you very much again for agreeing, Richard. I remember the last time I had just moved back home from New York, and I was unemployed at the time, and I was looking for something to do, something to challenge my energies. And you and I spoke practically every day, um, because at the time, of course, I needed moral support, and you were there as a tower strength, supporting me through those very difficult times that I was going through. And I remember you asking me, as a matter of fact, Richard, why don't I do this? And maybe I might be able to jog your memory a little bit. Um, you might let me see. I think you'd love this one. All right, let me go into this one and jog your memory just a little bit. All right, where are we? Here we are. Remember when the concept of this show came to me, I called him and we spoke for quite a while. And he asked, Sion, how can I help? If I can help in any way, let me know. I thought you can come from Germany and be my guest. And without any hesitation, he said, done. Ladies and gentlemen, yeah, this is gracing the stage, up late with Sehon Marshall. Right now, welcome, Richard Byron-Cx.
Good night.
I actually got a little emotional introducing you there. Um,
I can understand that.
do you remember that moment, Richard?
I am so happy that you have this on record because it is one of the most beautiful moments of my life, something I'll always remember. But I think it is one of the greatest honors of my life because you could have chosen anyone and you asked me to come to do this. And for me, to be honored in that way, to be treated with such honor, was a very, very special moment in my life. And many people have looked at this program over the years and they come back to me and they say, that show with you and Sehon Marshall was just so such an amazing evening, such an amazing exercise. It really was. And people have asked me many times, why did Sehon stop the show? Why didn't he continue to do this? Because what you brought was a mixture of entertainment, serious entertainment. Because as you remember, we had the great Fireman Hooper on that show that night as
Oh
well.
yeah, of course, of
And you
course.
brought information, education, but also you sort of undressed me a little bit, who's the man and what is behind the man, what is behind the personality of the man, and you brought it all out, and it was really, as I say, it's a moment in my life, a moment in my history, my personal history, that I would never forget. And I really want to thank you for having honored me that way. And now here again, you're honoring me by asking me to be here. And I want to say to your audience that I'm absolutely certain. I mean, over the shows that you had in the first series when you had that, I remember you discussing with a young man who had gone to prison, and you challenged the conscience of this nation. I remember that you challenged the conscience of this nation and saying, we are a Christian nation. He has done his time. He did something wrong. He has apologized and he served his time. Why are we still holding this around his neck? And fundamental things like that. Interviewing Nina Maloney, and she discussing how radio started in St. Vincent and her role and so on. So I'm saying all of
Do
that
you
is to
realize, Richard, as I butt in, if you remember, I'm not sure if you realize, but that was the last interview that Nina had
then, yes,
alive. So much
yes,
so that when she died, NBC Radio reached
playing
out
it.
to me and
Yes,
asked me for permission to use
to
that
use it.
interview as part of the tributes that they were playing.
Yes, I remember that very, very well. And so all of this, but what I'm saying is that Up Late with Sehon Marshall brought in a new dimension to television, images, video images, and the content of that, and so I'm truly honored. I would say blessed to be asked by you twice. The first time you began this, and now you're asking me again. And I want to say this, and I really mean this. What I say is that it it is one of the things I admire about you, the lack of fear to try, the lack of this thing. Okay, I can't do it. You've always had that, and that's a great thing to do. And honestly, I hope now, this second time around, that Up Late is going to be, even bigger, because it was big. And you remember, people, it was a live audience. I think, well, now I think you're the first person to have done a live audience of that sort anywhere in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. And that's a
Yes.
historic moment. And so I honestly feel that it is something special. As you said, NBC asked you for use of that material, and you brought out so many things. As I said, as somehow or the other, you dealt with the society as a whole in every way, and I'm looking forward to what Up Late this time around is going to offer. I really look forward to that.
And I look forward as well to having other special guests. And what I'm trying to do with this program, with the guests that come on and honor me with their presence, would be to have conversations that would engage the thoughts and the imagination of the viewers, from the smallest child to the oldest person, from the youngest to the oldest, content that they can relate to and they can appreciate.
Mhm.
And so I'm very careful in terms of choosing what I discuss and who I discuss it with, because I really want to ensure that the content doesn't fly over people's heads, but they can always say, well, wow, that was really an exciting and interesting uh, program, even if it was a bit heavy on some topics, maybe politics or global affairs, but still it was distilled down in a manner that they could have understood. And so that's exactly what I'm going towards. So again, Richard, thank you so much for
Sure.
being here. I have one bit of uh, piece of tidbit for you from the last program. Let's see. This one I had to caution you because I do not know where you were going, but here's another clip of Richard and I on the very first episode of Uplift with Sehon Marshall.
I know where you're going.
Pushkin was that Pushkin sort of realized that the expression of very life was in language. And I learned that. I understood that in a great way. And I think that is what spurred me on. But I suppose also the fact that I love languages, Russian or Spanish, and I like to curse bad words, But I want to tell you
None,
something.
none,
You
none, none,
understand,
not
right?
tonight.
Right?
We G-rated.
So, I meet you and I tell you about your auntie, your mommy, your uncle, and your cousin and thing, and smiling with you.
You can't say that. Not on the show.
What do you mean?
You can't tell anybody about your auntie and the mommy and so on.
So if I tell you your mother is a beautiful woman, which she is, I can't do that on the show?
No, you could
No,
tell her
this-
that. You would tell her that after the show.
But I can't put that. So you don't want anybody to know that your mother is beautiful?
No, that I never said that.
What did you say?
That you can't sit on the show. Okay. Richard, I tell
No,
you.
if I may just add this before we go on, I must add this. That I think that's the whole thing, that you bring out the human character, the humanity of people, because it's not this straight jacket, this starched and iron sort of thing. Oh, it's stiff and so on. But you made people enjoy what you did, And I think that is what I love most about it. That the human part of it always came out in whomever you had your discussions with. It wasn't just, this stiff, straightforward, intellectual discourse or something of that sort, but rather the humanity of the whole thing. I think that was always beautiful. Always beautiful.
All right. Thank you so much, Richard. All right. Now, normally we would take breaks for the program, but this is the first program, and I'm still working on a few things. So we are going to go straight through for the hour without any breaks, and hopefully we are able to cover some of the, or at least the majority of the
Yes.
material I want us to cover, because Lord have mercy, we have a lot to cover. Last week we had the CELAC meeting summit
Yeah.
in St. Vincent
Yes.
and the Grenadines, hosted by St. Vincent, who was at the time contemporary president of the
Yes.
community. From your vantage point, because I saw you were doing commentary at the airport when the leaders arrived, and I'm sure you took in parts of at least part of the summit, the part that was
Yes.
for public consumption. Give me a 90-second overview of your biggest takeaway from what occurred in St. Vincent and the Grenadines over those couple of days.
Well, as you say, 90 seconds now. I'll do this rapidly, but I want people to understand. First and foremost, you saw the maturity of a foreign policy of a small nation. This is maturity. The foreign policy of this country operates not just at the sub-regional level, OECS, or the regional level, CARICOM, but at the hemispheric level. This is Latin America and the Caribbean. So I think that's the first thing you saw, the maturity of the foreign policy of the country. Second thing you saw is a tiny nation being able to deliver at the highest possible hemispheric level. I mean, let us be clear that from Brazil to Bolivia to Barbados trusted the security of their leadership, their prime ministers and presidents, in the hands of the security forces of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. You don't just, the president of Brazil is the president of a country of more than 200 million people. He's the president of the 11th largest economy in the world, and people like that trust the security forces of St. Vincent and the Grenadines to guarantee the security of that. That's the second thing you saw. The third thing you saw is that a country was able to bring all of these things together. You see, and you have worked at the United Nations and you had your own business and so on. You know the kind of logistics this took to make this happen. And we brought all of it together seamlessly. Seamlessly. It's as if, we had an oil machine prepared to run this thing and to do this thing. So that's the second thing. That's the third thing you saw, that we were able to deal with the logistics. The fourth thing you saw is that we were able to have people who fundamentally not necessarily agree with one another come there, at the highest level. Here I'm talking specifically of Venezuela and Guyana, of course. And you saw the interaction and the exchange of gifts and so on. In other words, people trusted St. Vincent and the Grenadines to be the major interlocutor, and to bring everybody together. And we saw that. Outside of that, what we saw in this is, and seeing, I must say this, I'm of intention, but it's the truth. It was beautiful. It was graceful. It was beautiful and graceful. And we did all of that. But more than anything else, people honored this little country. You know that the Secretary General of the United Nations, the world chief diplomat, yes, he is the world chief diplomat because he is the head of the United Nations. The world chief diplomat had never attended any of the 7 previous summits, but he attended this one. He came, okay, and all of these presidents came, and this was an honor. The president of Bolivia, the president of Suriname, the president of Colombia, they were all there. The president of Honduras, they honored St. Vincent and the Grenadines. They didn't have to come, but they came. They came, and so they showed great honor to this country. And above all things, as I've said before, I began by saying it's the maturity of the foreign policy. You yourself, Sehon, worked in the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. You were a diplomat for our country, and you have seen us move from the president of ECOSOC, for example, to being a non-prominent member of the Security Council of the United Nations, to being the pro tempore president of CELAC. And I think that all of that tells me that the world is saying to us that we know St. Vincent has the ability, the capacity, to do this, and we proved them to be right. We did not disappoint. We did not disappoint ourselves. We did not disappoint the OECS. We did not disappoint CARICOM, because this was a proud moment. Remember, Sehon, that we are the first Caribbean nation, the first to be pro tempore president, of CELAC. So we were doing not just St. Vincent proud, we were doing OECS proud. We were doing CARICOM proud. We in CARICOM were saying, okay, good. We are not as big as Brazil. We are not as big as Argentina, and so on and so on. But we can do this. And the smallest among us can do it. Just to close on the 90 seconds, you remember Princess Monique, the Calypso Queen, who once said,
Yes.
SVG is stopped. She said, when we pull out all the stops, SVG is stopped. And we pulled out all the stops, and we proved her to be right.
You mentioned the visit of the presence of the United Nations Secretary General, Mr. Guterres, and the fact that he came to the first CELAC summit ever.
Yes.
So the previous 7 that were in other countries, he wasn't there. And so there was something significant about this one, why he came. He made some comments. I'm going to play the comments that he made, Richard, and I wanted to give me your take on the comments he made in the broader context of some of the discussions that occurred in St. Vincent and the Grenadines prior to the summit and even after. Just listen to what Mr. Antonio Guterres had to say at a press conference that you hosted, by the way, at the Ariel International Airport.
I want to pay tribute to Prime Minister Gonçalves for his permanent role, always very attentive of any possibility of conflict, and his engaged, active and effective mediation. As I also have seen in relation to his very strong commitment to the solution of the problems in Haiti. And paying tribute to him, I want to pay tribute to the courage, the resilience, and the solidarity of the people of St. Vincent of Grenadines. When the volcano exploded and when this island and its population faced a dramatic tragedy, I could witness the way this country was able to mobilize everything. The solidarity of the people, the courage of the people, the determination of the people, that is something that is an example for all of us everywhere. And once again, I want to express my enormous appreciation for what was done in the immediate response and in the reconstruction that followed.
Your thoughts, Richard?
Yes. Well, firstly, and this might not mean anything to anyone else, but it means something to me. The Secretary General was being very, very honest and genuine in what he said. What he said was said not only from the head, but from the heart. You can see the honesty and the genuineness in what he says. Secondly, it is clear to me that the Secretary General understood the leadership of Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves, the Prime Minister of our country, you know, and he is saying that, look, this man, this leader is exceptional, not only here at home in St. Vincent, but he's talking about the international level. You understand? Our Prime Minister's commitment to peace, to helping to secure peace, and our Prime Minister's ability, not just commitment, but ability to be effective in doing all of that. Outside of that, I think, in all honesty, when he mentions our response to the explosive eruption of Lasafre volcano and the resilience of the people, let us not just use his words, Sian. Let us deal with the reality. You know what? The man didn't arrive in our country now and sat down and give a 10-minute speech and then say, okay, bye-bye, I gone home. He didn't do that. You know what he did? He went up to see for himself the result of that resilience, the result of that strength, the result of that courage. And he mentioned it, but he wanted to see it as well. So I think what we see from the Secretary General of the United Nations is a man who truly sort of understands, what is happening. But he is so impressed, even though he understands it, he wanted to see it for himself. More than that, he wanted to come in person, see him. This might not mean anything to anybody else, but it means a lot to me. He wanted to come in person to say thank you. Seeing you were a diplomat like myself, and you trained at a certain level in this field. You know what I'm talking about. You know that Antonio Guterres could have just simply sent a message, a letter. You know he could have sent us a video message. You know he could have done it.
Of
You
course.
know
Could have
that
sent an
yourself.
envoy.
You understand? He could have sent an envoy. No, he came. He came personally to say thank you. You understand? And he stayed and he went to the people, not just Prime Minister Gonzalez, not just the political directorate of our country, but he went to the community and met the people and spoke with them. I don't know how you feel, but I am telling you that for me, that kind of thing speaks volumes about the maturity of our foreign policy. It speaks volumes as regards how people respect us at the international level. And it speaks volumes as to how people trust in us to be able to do things, you understand, effectively, correctly, you understand, beautifully, efficaciously. Listen to me. I worked for the United Nations, as you know, for 26 years. The Secretary General is not going to come to a place where he thinks this thing is going to be flip-flop. And the Secretary General is not going to come to a people and say thank you, fly all the way, and then stay days in the country, my brother. Stay days in the country and go to a country community, not Kingston, go all the way over the river, as we call it, you know what I mean, to see the people and to say thank you. I say hats off to St. Vincent. This is my take on this. I say hats off to my Prime Minister, our Prime Minister, Prime Minister Dr. the Honorable Ralph Gonsalves. But it says something else to me. St. Vincent land so beautiful. The beauty of our people with joyful hearts. We with joyful hearts did everything that we did in the past at the international level. We're doing it now. And he came to see and feel that joy. And we gave it to him. You understand? We gave it to him. And he appreciated it. This is a great, great moment. I wrote an article last week, and I don't know if you saw it. It is called Living the Golden Age. We're in a
I did
golden
see it. I did see it in
age.
Asbold News Network. Yes.
Yes, we are living in a golden age of foreign policy in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Whether you believe this or not, this is true. And listen, All the other countries, that held the seven summits before are much bigger and much richer than St. Vincent and the Grenadines. But he came to this one. He came to this one. It
And
says
that's a
something.
fact. I was on Scoop this morning. I was making the point that while we can have varying opinions and you can disagree with opinions, it's a different matter with facts. You don't dispute or deny or challenge facts because they are just that. They are facts. You can challenge my interpretation of it. You can challenge my opinions that I draw as a result, but the fact itself is something that you can't question. And the fact is that of all of these summits that happened before, he never went to any of them. And I asked myself, this is the newest sandals in the region. I wonder if any other sandals anywhere has ever hosted such a conference. But we have to shift gears because we spent a lot of time so far
Yes.
on CELAC, because I want us to expand a little bit beyond CELAC, but of course keeping CELAC as part of the discussion to the OAS and even the UN. Well, first of all of these organizations have a charter,
Yes.
and the OS has a charter, the UN has a
Yes.
charter, and the
Yes.
charter outlines what their purpose is and what they're
Yes.
supposed to do.
Yes.
Do you see, if you take the OAS and the United Nations into sharp focus specifically, do you see them living up to the spirit and the principles of their charters, their respective charters?
Um, Sian, that's a very, very deep and profound question as regards international law, international relations, and the role of these organizations. Um, Let us be clear that the United Nations, the OAS, and so on, these are clubs of nations. Let us be very clear about that. And let us be clear that in a club, you understand, sometimes some people have greater voices than others. And old people used to say, he who pays the fiddler calls the tune. I'm sure you would have heard your mother say
Mhm,
these words. Now, let us be clear. The United States of America pays 25% of the regular budget of the United Nations, okay? And 33%, 33 and a third percent of its peacekeeping budget. Those are the facts, right? He who pays the fiddler, call it tune. I'm just telling you the facts. Now, no, I don't think that these organizations, and in particular the United Nations, which I worked for many years, live up totally to what the charter says the objective of the organization is. The objective of the organization is to maintain international peace and security, right? The organization came into force, came into being in 1945, right? Since then, listen to this, more than 200 million people have died from armed conflicts, okay?
Well, I think as you talk about that, Richard, I think because you mentioned 1945, and I think it's important for us to make the point that that date is significant because it came after the Second World War, and
Yes,
so the organization was formed in response to the war to say, look,
yes,
we're not going to have any more wars. Let's form these organizations to prevent wars. And I
yes.
think that is significant of the date of 1945.
Yes, right. And since that time, we have had conflicts all over the place. You know them, Bosnia-Herzegovina, Rwanda, and so on and so forth. We could go on and go on. But the fact remains that millions and millions of people have died. Outside of that, we know that the world had come, at least on two separate occasions, close to nuclear war. You understand? Nuclear catastrophe. Right now, we're in a situation where nobody knows where we're going. We have Ukraine. We have, a matter of fact, we have Gaza. And I'm sorry to say this to you, but it is the truth. It is the first time that we have televised genocide taking place. We've had genocide before, but it's the first time in human history that genocide is being televised. Now, you know, Sian, because I know you did international law as well in your studies. In 1948, United Nations adopted the Treaty Against Genocide. That happened in 1948. So there's an international law, an international agreement which prohibits genocide. But we don't just only have genocide, we have televised genocide going on. You understand what I'm saying? And nothing is being done about it. And we know how many states from Libya to Yemen have been turned into failed states, you understand, because of conflict. And some of those conflicts are driven by those who had promised the world that we will not see this kind of terror going on. As I speak and as you speak, we know 25 million people in the Congo are facing dire straits. You know that, I know that, And so therefore, the way you ask the question, are they living up to the stated objective, the stated mandates and so on? The answer to that, in all honesty, is no. But let us be fair here. Can you imagine the world without them? Really? Seriously. St. Vincent is a tiny country. In 1763, the British took over our country and murdered my mother's people. My mother is a Carib woman. Murdered my mother's people. Committed genocide against these people. And those who they didn't kill, they sent them to the Bay of Honduras. You understand? We know them today as the Garifuna, right? St. Vincent and the Grenadines' place in this world is only guaranteed thanks to international law and mechanisms such as the United Nations, you understand, which, help in one way or the other to secure that. Okay? So we have to be real. Outside of that, seeing, from things like foreign debt to climate change, okay? And much more, right? For example, the violence that take place in the Caribbean, thanks to guns that come from somewhere else, okay? All of these threaten the very existence of St. Vincent and the Grenadines. Can you see St. Vincent and the Grenadines really surviving without being able to leverage these organizations, you understand, to make life better for us? Let us be concrete. Let us be very, very concrete. You and I know, for example, the reparations issue. Do you think St. Vincent on its own can fight that? Do you think CARICOM on its own can fight that? I beg to differ. You understand? We have to go to the broader circles, CELAC, the Organization of American States, ultimately the United Nations, ultimately things like the European Union. That is why our country, our Prime Minister, led the CELAC discussions with the European Union recently, as you will recall, right? And he made sure the issue of reparations came out in the final document. You understand what I'm saying? You cannot fix these things on your own. So yes, let us admit, let us agree that objectively speaking, there are many, many weaknesses in these multilateral organizations. And you and I can list them. We know them. But please ask yourself, will the world be a better place without them?
No, you brought things into focus, Richard, in terms of helping us to recognize that even though these organizations aren't perfect, they are serving a purpose, and we need those organizations. But let us look now at our role in those organizations, because very often you hear discussions at home about the benefits. What's the benefit of this? What's the benefit of us being on the Security Council? What's the benefit of us being the president of ECOSOC? We spend all of this money, and what is the point behind it? What is the benefit, or what are the benefits of us hosting the CELAC summit?
Yes.
What is the relevance, or what is the point of St. Vincent and the Grenadines' activism at these organizations, always trying to ensure that they're at the table, that their voice is heard? Is there anything for us to gain as a country from this? And if so, what?
Right. Now, I like how you put it. You use the word table. St. Vincent is determined to be at the table. You understand? The table is where things are shared out, Sian. It's where the food is placed. The table is where things are placed. Nobody don't put it on the ground, and nobody don't put it in some cupboard. It is at the table. Now, if you want your share, you understand what I'm saying? Don't you have to be at the table? That's the first thing you must answer. Don't you have to be at the table if you want your share? That's the first thing. The second thing, if you are not at the table and you can't speak for yourself, remember I said that my mother's people were murdered by the British. Do you expect them to speak for you? Slavery tells us no. Imperialism tells us no. Colonialism tells us no. The history tells us that. You understand? So we have to stand up and speak for ourselves. What is the importance of your independence if you're going to run away from those who you are supposed to talk to? You understand? In that role of independence. What is the purpose of it? Now, let's get more concrete, because I like the way you ask the question. What is it materially for us? That is the thing. You understand? So let me ask you two questions, rhetorical questions. The health services of St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is it a profitable operation? Do we make millions of dollars from it at the end of the day?
Actually, we make a loss every year.
You understand?
Every year.
The education of our young people in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, do we make millions of dollars of profit every year from it? You understand? Everything cannot be seen in pure transactional terms of dollars and cents. This is a nonsensical approach, you understand, to things like this. But let's go further. Don't you agree with me, Sehon, that the international airport could not be built without our foreign policy? I think you'll agree with me. We built it through something called the coalition of the willing. That's how we built it, And so too, we built not necessarily coalition of the willing, but we built the Rabaka Bridge that way. And the educational revolution, we are building that, we are doing that same way. Now, all of this are material benefits, real concrete material benefits. But you and I know, the first thing I began with is that the sovereignty of St. Vincent and the Grenadines is guaranteed by international law. It's guaranteed by us being part of these organizations, and it's guaranteed by us being able to sit at the table and say our piece. Now, let us be clear. Let us be very, very clear. You know, Sehon, because you studied climate change law, you have a master's degree in this business. So you understand what I'm talking about, right? But let's forget the academics of it. Let us deal with the reality of it, right? We know, I know, you know, right? If sea level rises beyond 1.5, probably whole of Barbados is going to sink. You understand? At least 30%, more than that, but at least 30% of all Vincentians live on the coast of this country, along the coastline. You understand? If you have sea level rise, right, we have to find place to put that 30%, which is 30,000, 33,000 people. Where are we going to put them? You understand? Kingston itself, you understand, will not be a city anymore, right? Now, we could stand by ourselves and bay the moon like mad dogs. Oh, climate change, oh, climate change, oh, climate change. The only way we're going to solve this, the only way we're going to get others to listen to us, Sehon Marshall, is for us to be at the table where the others are. This is the reality, where the others are. Our country, Sehon, our country, built an international airport. Okay? And we built it, it cost us $600 million. That's what it cost us to build. It's just worth $1.2 billion. And we incurred some debts, But because we were at the table in terms of ALBA and so on, we got more than $100 million forgiveness debt. That could only happen because we were at the table. It could only happen because we were at the table. What are you going to do, Sehon Marshall, if you become Prime Minister of our country? Sit down, Shatbile, where you're born, with your mommy, you understand, and expect the world to come to you? Is that what
I don't think she would mind. I don't think my mother would mind at all. But that wouldn't make sense.
You understand? Will that help St. Vincent and the Grenadines in one way or the other? Now, let us deal with just two concrete things. You, Sehon Marshall, know that we are building a brand new hospital, right? Out at the new city that we're now constructing at Arnersville, right? Where we had the E.T. Joshua Airport. How are we building it? Excuse me, please. How are we building it? We're getting a lot of the money from where? From the World Bank. Isn't that so?
Yes.
The World Bank is a multilateral financial institution. The majority of the money in that bank come from whom? The United States of America, Canada, and Western Europe. You understand? That is the reality, you know. But let's go further. We're building a port, right? That port is going to cost us $600 million. Guess who gave us a lot of money to do it now? The British.
The British.
Yes.
But the CDB also another multilateral institution as well.
But this is the point. And guess what? We have no relations with China. But guess who is a lending member of the CDB?
A non-borrowing member, yeah.
A non-borrowing member.
Yeah.
China. Don't we have to engage these people? So because you can't see 10 bread coming directly, you understand, from the CELAC summit, okay, or from us being in CELAC, right? Oh, I can't see the 10 bread. It makes no sense. We're wasting time and wasting money. Absolute rubbish and nonsense. Outside of that, and this is key, people, the rest of the people involved in these institutions, they develop a sort of respect and belief and trust in St. Vincent and the Grenadines that even their very existence sometimes they turn to us and ask us, could you help negotiate? If a war broke out between Venezuela and Guyana, people are going to die dead, you know. People are going to die. That is what is going to happen. You understand? In the past, Mr. Marshall, let me put this to you. No small little island like St. Vincent would be able to call and say to them, come, let we talk. Let us talk about this thing. Let us fix this thing. No. Who is St. Vincent and the Grenadines? Who is this Ralph Gonzalez? You understand what I'm saying? Venezuela is a huge country. Ghana have oil like Ghana have a sea of oil. Why do we have to listen to this man? But guess what now? He is what? President pro tempore of what? A multilateral organization called CELAC.
Yes.
And everybody.
Richard, we're running out of time. So I'm going to have to pull a lot of the topics that we had because it's only all we have, as you know. And once we start to talk, we know how things go. But I go back to the issue that you spoke of, which is the conflict between the Israelis and the Palestinians.
Yes.
We also have the conflict that's ongoing between Russia and Ukraine.
Yes.
But you've used the word genocide, as many others have, to describe what is happening in Gaza. The Convention on Genocide, Prevention and Punishment of Genocide that you refer to, Article
1948, 2. Yes.
Article 2 says, in the present convention, genocide means any of the following acts committed with intent to destroy, in whole or in part, in national, ethnical, racial, or religious group, as such. A, killing members of the group. B, causing serious bodily or mental harm to members of the group. C, deliberately inflicting on the group conditions of life calculated to bring about its physical destruction in whole or in part. D, imposing measures intended to prevent births within the group. And E, forcibly transferring children of the group into other groups. Now, clearly, if you look at some of those areas, you see them occurring. Now, you see the wanton killing of civilians. You see serious bodily harm being caused with the injury of over 70,000 people injured. You see the conditions being inflicted where people are being starved to death, essentially, and being deprived of medication. So that people are not far-fetched, and I don't think they're necessarily wrong if they're using the words of the convention as the marker in describing what is going on in Gaza as a genocide.
Yes.
With that being said, Richard, what is the cause of the paralysis?
If you recall, when we began this, I said that the
And
United
I'm
Nations.
asking the question in the context of a United Nations
Yes,
that
that I
is
understood.
designed to prevent this,
I
among other
understood.
things.
I understood the question very, very, very clearly. As I began by saying the United Nations is a club. You understand? I began by saying that. Now let me explain something to you, which you know, but let's explain to the audience. The United Nations is a body of many nations, 193 in total, okay? Plus observers and so on, okay? Observer nations, right? But the body which is responsible for peace and international security is something called the Security Council. Now, that Security Council is made up of 15 members, 10 of which are non-prominent. In other words, they serve 2 years, and 5 of which are prominent. These are
As a
Russia.
matter of fact, if I may, and you may know this for the listeners, they sometimes jokingly refer to as the tourists of the Security Council
Council,
because they're
precisely.
just visiting.
Yeah, yes, precisely. Because ultimately the power lies with 5 nations, right? The United States of America, China, France, England, and Russia, okay? And once any of those nations, any of them, any one of them, veto anything, you understand, it cannot go forward. It doesn't matter what the other 14 says, right? Now, the paralysis is because of the United States of America. That's just the fact of the matter. The rest say, okay, we need to have a ceasefire. You understand what I'm saying? The Americans can abstain. In other words, they don't have to vote. They don't have to do anything. And it will go forward once they abstain. But they make it their business to veto. In other words, to stop, you understand, the resolution. We need to understand the difference, right? If the Americans just sit down and the thing is discussed and they put it to the vote and the Americans do nothing, okay, neither for or against, it will be carried. You understand? Right? But once they veto it, it doesn't matter what the other 14 say. Okay?
And by veto, you mean vote against it.
Against, yes. To veto
Yes.
it is to stop the thing from going forward. Okay? To vote against it. No, we don't agree. Okay? And that is what is causing the paralysis. As you will recall, because you were one of our diplomats in the United Nations at the time, one of the things we believe, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, is that there needs to be a fundamental reform of the United Nations, and in particular the Security Council, because you cannot have one nation, using its veto power to let a televised genocide continue. And that is what we're seeing now. You understand? The United States of America, I don't say this because I'm anti-American. I am not in any way, shape, or form. You understand? No. I'm saying it because it is a fact. So once you have this club, do you know, for example, that you cannot become the Secretary General of the United Nations unless all 5 prominent members either agree actively or nobody oppose you. You cannot become, once any one of them say no, you cannot become the Secretary General of the United Nations. That's a fact.
Now, having said that, and I want to break this point in. You may disagree with me, Richard, but I think of the secretaries general that I have known, Kofi Annan, Ban Ki-moon, and now Guterres, I think Guterres is probably the one who is boldest, and I use the word in quotation marks, in articulating positions that
Yes.
are not necessarily in line, in lockstep with the P5, specifically the US, on issues of climate change, loss and damage, and even currently in Gaza. Immediately, I remember him coming under fire when he said in a presentation that what happened on October 7th, as horrific as it was, did not happen in a vacuum.
Yes.
And I remember Israel was up in arms demanding his
That he
resignation.
resigned. That he resigned.
Now,
Yes.
in St. Vincent and the Grenadines, he addressed the matter, and he put it this way. I want to play his comments for you, Richard, and these will be the final comments because we're coming close to the end of the show. I want you to listen to his comments and give me your thoughts on the points he was making.
Today, I was shocked to know that in another episode of the war in Gaza, 100 people that were queuing to receive humanitarian aid were killed. I think a situation like this would require an effective independent investigation to detect how it was possible and who's responsible for it. And at the same time, there is the reported number of more than 30,000 civilians that have died in Gaza since the 7th of October, making it an unprecedented number of civilian kills in a conflict since I am Secretary General.
I think, Richard, those were very strong comments coming from the Secretary General in St. Vincent and the Grenadines. I don't think those are the kind of comments that the White House and the Congress and the Senate in the US would love to hear. What are your thoughts in a minute and a half?
Well, firstly, you said he's bold. I would tell you this, that I served under several Secretary Generals, Ban Ki-moon, Kofi Annan, and him. And I would tell you, he is the one with decent humanity. You understand? He's a decent human being. His position didn't matter. What mattered to him, or what matters to him, is humanity, and the humanity of these people. Kofi Annan, being a black man and African, I don't know if you recall that Kofi Annan was here.
We have 2 minutes left, so I wanted to address the issue of Gaza and the comments he made, because we almost done.
Yes, Kofi Annan turned his back on Rwanda when it happened. Now, what you see here is a man speaking the truth. He made those comments based on the truth. And you know what he said? This is what he said. I don't want to make judgments about anybody. Let's have an independent investigation and find out how such an atrocity could have taken place. That is not just courage, Sehon. It is courage, I agree with you. It is boldness, but it is decency, human decency. I think that is what differs Antonio Guterres from Kofi Annan and from the Korean Ban Ki-moon. They did not have the level of human decency that this man has. That is my view.
Richard, we got to leave it there. Let me thank you so much, my brother, for being a part of tonight's program. Thank you so much for staying up late with us. Really appreciate your insights. I mean, we could have gone on for another 2 hours, but my brother, it was fantastic having you. Thank you so much. Thank you for your insights, and all the best.
It was my honor and my pleasure, really. I really do feel honored that you would ask me. Genuinely feel honored. I wish the program the best, and as you know, I'm always at your service and the service of our country. Thank you again.
Thank you very much, Richard. And with that, we've come to the end of the first in the second season, the first edition in the second season, or the first episode in the second season of Up Late with Sehon Marshall. I've been your host, Sehon Marshall. Thank you for joining us tonight, and see you next Thursday with another exciting program of Up Late with Sehon Marshall. Good night.